We remain skeptical despite scientists assuring us that sharks don't see humans as prey. Driven by curiosity, sharks sometimes mistake humans for food in their exploratory bites. This video compellingly demonstrates this behavior, showing sharks attacking inanimate objects they confuse with prey. Accepting this reality may be challenging, but the evidence is undeniable. Jeremy had always lived for the thrill. His constant companions had been the adrenaline rush, the wind against his face, and the sheer exhilaration of pushing the limits. Australia's Gold Coast, with its stunning beaches and wild waters, provided the perfect playground for his daring exploits. Today was no exception. The morning sun cast a golden hue over the ocean, and the call for adventure was too strong to resist. He decided it was the perfect day to take his jet ski out for a spin. Jeremy's jet ski was his pride and joy. Sleek and powerful, it could slice through the waves like a hot knife through butter. He'd spent countless hours customizing it, making it faster, more agile, and ideally suited to his high-octane escapades. As he donned his wetsuit and secured his life jacket, he felt a familiar thrill building in his chest. He revved the engine and set off from the shoreline, eager to lose himself in the embrace of the open sea. The coastline stretched endlessly before him, a tapestry of white sand and cerulean waves. He navigated through the surf, feeling the power of the ocean beneath him. Jeremy loved how the jet ski responded to his slightest touch, an extension of his will as he danced across the water. He weaved between the waves, carving through them with effortless grace. The world around him dissolved into a blur of salt spray and sunlight. As he ventured farther from the shore, the crowds of beachgoers thinned, leaving him in a solitary expanse of water. The only sounds were the engine's roar and the rhythmic thump of his heart. Jeremy felt alive, more alive than he ever did on land. The horizon was a distant line, a promise of uncharted territory, and he sped toward it with reckless abandon. The minutes turned into hours as he continued his high-speed ballet across the ocean. He felt invincible, untouchable, and a master of his element. But the sea, for all its beauty, was a wild and unpredictable force. Under its sparkling surface lay secrets and dangers, and Jeremy was about to come face to face with one of its most formidable inhabitants. It began with a shadow, a fleeting glimpse of something massive moving beneath the water. At first, Jeremy thought it was a trick of the light, a product of his imagination. But the shadow grew more significant and more distinct until there was no denying its presence. A chill ran down his spine as he realized what it was. A great white shark, a true leviathan of the deep, was stalking him. The shark's dorsal fin broke the surface, a menacing triangle slicing through the water with deadly purpose. Jeremy's heart pounded in his chest and he instinctively throttled up, hoping to outrun the predator. But the shark was faster and more relentless. Its massive body, propelled by powerful tail strokes, surged forward with terrifying speed. The first impact came with a bone-jarring force. The shark rammed the jet ski from below, nearly tossing Jeremy into the water. He fought to regain control, his mind racing with fear and adrenaline. The shark circled back for another strike, its dark eyes gleaming with predatory intent. It struck again, its mighty jaws clamping down on the rear of the jet ski. Jeremy could hear the splintering of fiberglass as the shark's teeth tore through the hull, sending shivers down his spine and a surge of adrenaline through his veins. Panic surged through him, but he forced himself to think. He needed a plan, a way to survive this nightmare. The jet ski was torn apart beneath him and the shore was too far to swim to. Desperation fueled his actions as he scanned the horizon for any safety signs. His eyes locked onto a buoy, a bright orange beacon bobbing in the waves a few hundred meters away. It wasn't much, but it was his only hope. Jeremy gunned the engine, coaxing every last power from the damaged jet ski. The shark was relentless, pursuing him with unyielding ferocity. The buoy seemed impossibly distant, each meter feeling like an eternity. He could feel the jet ski weakening and the hull splitting apart under the relentless assault. The shark's jaws closed around the jet ski again, ripping away a large chunk of the rear section. And Jeremy knew he had only moments before it sank. With a final burst of speed, he reached near the buoy. The jet ski gave one last shudder before capsizing, throwing Jeremy into the cold embrace of the ocean. He swam with frantic strokes, feeling the water churn around him as the shark closed in. His fingers found purchase on the buoy's metal ladder, and he hauled himself up with every ounce of strength he had left. He clung to the buoy, his chest heaving with exertion. The shark circled below, its massive body gliding through the water with eerie grace. Jeremy knew he was far from safe. The buoy rocked with the waves, and he struggled to keep his grip. He needed to signal for help, but his mind was a blur of fear and exhaustion. He reached into his wetsuit and pulled out a flare gun, his last lifeline. With trembling hands, he loaded a flare and aimed it skyward. The flare shot into the air, a bright red streak against the blue sky. It burned brightly briefly before fizzling out, a desperate plea for rescue. Jeremy fired another flare, then another, hoping against hope that someone would see them. The minutes stretched into an agonizing eternity. Jeremy's muscles ached from holding on, and the shark's presence below constantly reminded him of his peril. He tried to stay calm to conserve his strength, but the fear was a living thing, gnawing at his resolve. He thought of his family, his friends, and the life he still wanted to live. He couldn't give up, not now. Finally, he saw a distant speck on the horizon, growing larger with each passing second. A boat was racing toward him with all the speed it could muster. Jeremy's heart leaped with hope. The rescuers had seen his flares. Help was on the way. The boat drew closer, and Jeremy saw the crew leaning over the railings, shouting instructions. They tossed a rope ladder into the water, and Jeremy summoned the last of his strength to reach for it. He climbed up, every muscle protesting, until he was pulled aboard by solid and reassuring hands. He collapsed onto the deck, gasping for breath, his body trembling with relief. The crew tended to him, wrapping him in blankets and offering words of comfort. Jeremy's eyes flicked back to the water, where the shark still lingered, its dark shape a haunting reminder of how close he had come to death. The boat turned toward the shore, leaving the predator behind. Jeremy's mind replayed the harrowing ordeal as they sped back to safety. He had faced one of nature's most fearsome creatures and lived to tell the tale. For all its beauty, the ocean was a realm of untamed danger, and he had glimpsed its savage heart. He knew he would never forget the feeling of the shark's teeth tearing through the jet ski and the terror of being hunted. Jeremy was greeted by anxious faces and concerned voices back on solid ground. He tried to put on a brave front to reassure everyone that he was all right, but the experience had shaken him to his core. He knew he would return to the water one day, but the thrill would be tempered by a newfound respect for the ocean's power. As the sun set over the horizon, casting long shadows across the beach, Jeremy sat alone, gazing at the sea. The waves lapped gently at the shore, a soothing contrast to the violence he had just endured. He took a deep breath, feeling the salt air fill his lungs. He was alive, and for now, that was enough. The Arctic sun hung low on the horizon, casting a perpetual twilight over the icy expanse. The air was crisp, and the deep, frigid blue water mirrored the vast sky above. A group of 6 kayakers, all experienced adventurers, paddled through the serene waters, marveling at the stark beauty of their surroundings. Their expedition had begun a week earlier in a remote coastal village in Greenland. They had navigated through narrow fjords, camped on ice floes, and encountered a variety of Arctic wildlife. Seals and seabirds had been frequent companions, and had even been fortunate to spot a few distant polar bears. Their journey had been one of awe and wonder, a testament to the unyielding beauty of nature in its most pristine form. On this particular day, the kayakers ventured further into open water, drawn by the promise of an untouched ice field and the chance to observe a pod of orcas spotted in the area. The group paddled loosely, and their kayaks sliced through the water quickly. The sound of their paddles dipping and rising in the water was rhythmic, almost hypnotic. Each stroke brought them closer to the pod of orcas they hoped to see. The first sign of the orcas was a distant spout of water, followed by the sleek black dorsal fins breaking the surface. The kayakers paused, allowing themselves to drift as they watched the magnificent creatures from a safe distance. The orcas, known for their intelligence and social behavior, moved with mesmerizing grace and power. The group felt profoundly privileged to witness these apex predators in their natural habitat. As the orcas drew nearer, the kayakers couldn't help but feel excitement and trepidation. Orcas, despite their reputation as killer whales, were known to be generally non-aggressive toward humans. However, the icy Arctic waters held many unknowns, and the kayakers remained vigilant. They had encountered orcas before on previous expeditions, but there was something different about this pod. Without warning, one orca broke away from the pod and circled closer to the kayakers. The group tensed, their paddles held ready, as the orca's behavior grew increasingly erratic. It swam in tight loops, its dorsal fins slicing through the water in a manner that suggested agitation. The other orcas soon followed suit, their movements mirroring the first. The water around the kayakers churned as the pod's energy shifted from curious observation to something more menacing. Suddenly, one of the orcas surged forward, its massive head emerging from the water as it grabbed the bow of a kayak in its jaws. The kayaker, a seasoned adventurer named Mark, felt the kayak shudder violently as the orca's teeth clamped down. Panic surged through him as the orca began to drag the kayak underwater. The frigid Arctic water rushed over him, seeping into his dry suit and numbing his limbs. Mark's companions sprang into action. They paddled furiously toward him, shouting to each other over the roar of the water. The orca, sensing the approaching kayakers, momentarily released its grip, allowing Mark to gasp for air before being pulled under again. The partially submerged kayak was a dead weight, making it nearly impossible for Mark to free himself. The other kayakers formed a loose perimeter around the struggling orca and its captive. They slapped the water with their paddles, creating noise and splashes to distract the orca. It was a desperate gamble, but it paid off. The orca, momentarily disoriented by the commotion, released the kayak, ultimately allowing Mark to surface. His companions quickly surrounded him and helped him stabilize his kayak and assess the damage. The pod of orcas, however, still needs to be done. They continued to circle the group, their behavior becoming increasingly aggressive. The kayakers, hearts pounding, knew they needed to act fast. They formed a tight formation, their kayaks touching in a makeshift raft, and paddled toward the nearest ice floe. Though agitated, the orcas seemed hesitant to follow too closely to the ice. Reaching the ice floe was a moment of immense relief. The kayakers clambered out of their kayaks, their legs shaking from adrenaline in the cold. Mark's kayak was damaged, but still seaworthy, a testament to the rugged construction of their equipment. They dragged their kayaks onto the ice and took stock of their situation. The orcas had retreated slightly but remained nearby, their black fins cutting through the water like knives. The gravity of what had just transpired as the group huddled together began to sink in. They had faced countless challenges on their expeditions, but this was different. The orcas' intelligence and coordinated aggression had been unnerving. They knew they had to remain vigilant and ready to act should the orcas return. Hours passed, and the sun, still low on the horizon, cast long shadows across the ice. The kayakers took turns keeping watch, their eyes scanning the water for any sign of the orcas. The icy wind bit at their exposed skin, but they welcomed the cold as a reminder that they were alive. The memory of the orca's jaws closing around Mark's kayak was seared into their minds, a stark reminder of the unpredictable power of nature. As night slowly gave way to the dim light of day, the orcas finally began to move away. The kayakers, exhausted but committed, decided to make their way back to their base camp. They launched their kayaks cautiously, keeping a wary eye on the retreating pod. The journey back was tense, with every splash and ripple in the water sending a jolt of fear through the group. However, the orcas did not return, and the kayakers returned to camp without further incident. Once safely back at their base camp, the group sat around a small fire, the warmth a welcome contrast to the cold that had seeped into their bones. They recounted the day's events, each detail etched vividly in their minds. They knew they had been lucky. The orca's aggression could have easily resulted in tragedy. Christopher Langford had always been drawn to the sea. His calling brought him to the Bahamas, where the deep azure waters held secrets and mysteries that beckoned the curious and the brave. His life as a marine biologist and seasoned diver had given him countless opportunities to explore the ocean's depths. But this expedition promised something extraordinary. The mission was simple yet ambitious: to explore an uncharted underwater cave system off the coast of Andros Island. The cave, rumored to be vast and intricate, had piqued the interest of oceanographers and divers alike. Langford and his team had been preparing for weeks, meticulously planning every detail to ensure their safety and success. The day began with the sun rising over a tranquil sea, casting a golden hue on the waves. The boat rocked gently as Christopher and his diving partner Maria donned their gear. The water was inviting, its clarity revealing the vibrant coral reefs below. They double-checked their equipment, exchanging confident nods before slipping into the warm embrace of the ocean. As they descended, the world above faded away, replaced by the serene silence of the underwater realm. Schools of colorful fish darted around them, their movements synchronized in a mesmerizing dance. The sunlight filtered through the water, creating light and shadow on the sandy seabed. They navigated through the coral gardens, their progress smooth and unhurried. After a short swim, the entrance to the cave came into view. It was a dark, yawning mouth in the rock framed by an array of sea fans and sponges. Langford's heart quickened with anticipation. They activated their torches, the beams piercing the darkness as they entered. The cave was a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers, each more intriguing than the last. Stalactites and stalagmites adorned the walls, and the water was colder, dropping noticeably as they ventured deeper. They moved cautiously, aware of the fragile environment and the potential hazards hidden in the shadows. Langford's torchlight caught something unusual as they explored, a flash of large and fast movement. His pulse quickened as he directed the beam toward the source, revealing the massive form of a grouper fish. It was unlike any he had ever seen. Its size and presence were awe-inspiring and intimidating. The grouper hovered near the entrance of a narrow passage, its eyes fixed on the intruders. Langford signaled to Maria, pointing out the fish. They knew groupers could be territorial, but this one seemed unusually agitated. They decided to proceed with caution, giving the grouper a wide berth. As they swam past, Langford felt a shiver of unease. The fish's gaze followed them, its body tense as if ready to strike. Continuing through the cave, they encountered more wonders, bioluminescent creatures that glowed softly in the darkness, delicate sea anemones swaying with the currents, and intricate rock formations that seemed sculpted by an artist's hand. Despite the beauty around him, Langford couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The passage they followed grew narrower, forcing them to move a single file. Langford led the way, his senses alert. The walls closed in, and he felt a slight claustrophobia, a rare sensation. The tunnel took a sharp turn, and as he rounded the corner, he came face to face with the grouper again. It had followed them, its bulk blocking their path back. The fish moved with a sudden explosive speed, lunging at Langford. The impact was brutal, knocking the regulator from his mouth and sending him crashing into the rock wall. Pain shot through his side as he struggled to regain control. The grouper's attack was relentless, its mighty jaws snapping dangerously close. Instinct kicked in, and Langford kicked hard, propelling himself backward. He signaled frantically to Maria, who was just behind him. The narrow tunnel left little room for maneuvering, and the grouper's bulk made it even more difficult. Langford's mind raced as he searched for an escape route. He spotted a small crevice in the rock, just wide enough to squeeze through. He motioned for Maria to follow him and dove towards the opening. The grouper was close. Its presence was a constant threat. Langford pushed himself into the crevice, feeling the rough rock scrape against his suit. He pulled himself through, his body protesting with every movement. Emerging on the other side, he found himself in a larger chamber, the ceiling high above. He turned to see Maria following, her movements swift and precise. The grouper, unable to fit through the narrow opening, thrashed angrily on the other side. For the moment, they were safe. Langford took a moment to catch his breath, his side throbbing with pain. He checked his equipment, ensuring everything was still functional. The attack had left him shaken but determined. They needed to find a way out quickly. They continued through the cave, the sense of urgency driving them forward. The tunnels twisted and turned, each intersection a potential dead end. Langford's mind worked feverishly, mapping their route and searching for an exit. The pain in his side was a constant reminder of the danger they faced. After what felt like an eternity, they came upon a wider passage, the water here clearer and warmer. The sense of confinement began to lift, replaced by a glimmer of hope. Langford's torch illuminated a familiar sight, the entrance to the cave. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. The grouper had found another way through, its massive form appearing at the edge of the light. It charged again, its movements more aggressive than before. Langford and Maria split, each taking a different path to confuse the fish. The grouper followed Langford, its focus unwavering. The chase led them to another narrow tunnel with the walls closing again. Langford swam with all his strength, the pain in his side growing more intense. He could feel the grouper's presence just behind him, its powerful body propelling it forward with terrifying speed. The tunnel twisted, and Langford saw a faint light ahead, a possible exit. With a final burst of energy, he pushed himself towards the light. The tunnel opened into a shallow reef, the sunlight filtering through the water in a dazzling display. Langford broke the surface, gasping for air. He turned to see Maria emerging beside him, expressing relief and exhaustion. They had made it. The grouper, unwilling to venture into the shallow waters, lingered at the edge of the reef, its dark eyes watching them. Langford floated on his back, the pain in his side now a dull throb. He glanced at Maria, who gave him a weary smile. The boat appeared on the horizon, and the commotion alerted their crew. Langford and Maria signaled for help, and their ordeal finally ended. As they were pulled aboard, Langford lay on the deck, his thoughts a whirlwind of relief, pain, and gratitude. The encounter with the grouper had been a stark reminder of the unpredictable dangers beneath the ocean's surface. Langford had faced many challenges in his career, but this one had tested him in ways he hadn't anticipated. With all its beauty and wonder, the sea remained a place of untamed wildness, where even the most seasoned divers could find themselves at the mercy of its inhabitants. As the boat sped towards the shore, Langford closed his eyes, letting the sound of the waves soothe his weary mind. The expedition had been a success, but came at a cost. He knew he would return to the ocean, driven by the same curiosity and passion that had brought him here. But for now, he was content to rest, knowing that he had survived the depths and lived to tell the tale. The icy expanse of Antarctica stretched endlessly, a world of pristine white snow and frozen blue seas. Here, a dedicated group of scientists had set up their research station, driven by an unyielding quest to study the diverse and enigmatic marine life beneath the ice. They had been on the continent for weeks, meticulously collecting data and observing the rich ecosystem hidden below the surface. Every day, they donned their thick wetsuits and descended into the frigid waters, their breaths creating vapor clouds in the biting cold. They marveled at the vibrant colors of the underwater world, where starfish clung to rocks and krill swarmed in vast numbers. The beauty of the Antarctic marine life was mesmerizing, a testament to nature's adaptability and resilience in even the harshest of environments. But Antarctica's pristine beauty also had its dangers. Among the most feared predators in these icy waters was the leopard seal, a sleek and powerful hunter known for its agility and aggressiveness. The team knew the risks, but their passion for discovery often outweighed their caution. Danny Moses, an experienced diver on the team, meticulously checked his equipment. The day's mission was to collect samples from the ocean floor, requiring precision and focus. Danny slipped into the water, the cold biting through the thick layers of neoprene. As he descended, the world above disappeared, replaced by a surreal underwater landscape. The initial moments were peaceful. Fish darted around, and Danny carefully collected specimens, placing them in a mesh bag. The water was clear, and the visibility was surprisingly good for this time of year. Danny was engrossed in his work, almost forgetting the ever-present danger that lurked in these waters. Suddenly, a shadow passed overhead, a dark blur that moved with unsettling speed. Danny glanced up, his heart rate quickening. There, gliding silently just above the ice, was a leopard seal. Its sleek body moved with grace and power, and its eyes scanned the water with predatory intent. Danny froze, hoping the seal would lose interest and move on, but the predator's gaze locked onto him, its curiosity quickly turning to aggression. The seal circled, its movements calculated and menacing. Danny knew he had to act fast. He began to ascend, kicking his fins with urgency. The seal, sensing its prey's attempt to flee, lunged forward. Danny felt a surge of adrenaline, his senses sharpening in the face of imminent danger. Breaking through the surface, Danny reached for the nearby ice floe. The team watched anxiously from a distance as the seal's sleek form sliced through the water. Knowing they had to act quickly, they saw Danny scramble onto the ice, his hands slipping on the wet surface. The seal wasn't far behind, its mighty jaws snapping at the air. The team began coordinating their efforts to fend off the predator. One member grabbed a flare gun, aiming to scare the seal away. Another prepared a rope to help Danny get to safety. Danny clung to the ice's edge, breathless and shivering, his mind racing with fear and determination. The seal lunged again, its teeth grazing Danny's leg. Pain shot through his body, but the adrenaline kept him moving. He kicked at the seal, trying to buy himself a few precious seconds. The team fired the flare, and the bright light and loud noise startled the seal momentarily. It paused, giving Danny a brief window to pull himself further onto the ice. Blood stained the snow as Danny finally climbed onto the ice floe. The team pulled him to safety, their hands gripping the rope tightly. The seal swam in circles, frustrated by its unsuccessful hunt, its eyes fixed on the humans above. Danny lay on the ice, panting heavily, his leg throbbing with pain. The team quickly applied first aid, wrapping the wound tightly to stem the bleeding. They radioed for help, knowing their top priority was getting Danny back to the station. The journey back was arduous. Though seriously injured, Danny remained conscious, his thoughts a whirlwind of relief and lingering fear. The team moved swiftly, carrying their injured colleague on a makeshift sled. Every bump and jolt sent waves of pain through Danny's body, but he gritted his teeth, knowing he was safe for now. As they approached the research station, the team saw the helicopter waiting, its blades slicing through the cold air. Danny was carefully loaded into the aircraft, and the medics immediately tended to his wounds. The helicopter lifted off, the icy landscape below becoming a distant memory. Danny was flown to a medical facility, receiving the care he needed. The injuries, though severe, were not fatal. The team stayed by his side, relieved that their colleague had survived the ordeal. The experience left an indelible mark on them, a stark reminder of their work's unpredictable and often dangerous nature. The sun hung high in the Hawaiian sky, casting shimmering reflections over the cerulean expanse of the Pacific Ocean. The air was excited as the annual Kona fishing tournament unfolded, drawing some of the world's most skilled anglers to its azure depths. Among them stood David Roll, a seasoned fisherman with eyes like the sea, and a steady hand honed by years of maritime battles. The competition had been fierce from the outset. Boats cut through the waves, leaving white trails in their wake as anglers cast their lines, each hoping to hook the legendary marlin that haunted these waters. David's boat bobbed gently on the swells as he prepared his gear, the anticipation of the chase sending a familiar thrill through his veins. The sea around him seemed alive with possibility, with the promise of a great catch whispering in the salty breeze. Hours passed in a tense dance of patience and precision. Lines were cast and reeled in, the sea offering glimpses of its secrets only to withdraw them tantalizingly out of reach. The competitors around David caught and released various fish, their triumphs and failures echoing across the water. Yet for David, the true challenge had to reveal itself. He felt the pull of destiny in the depths, an unseen force that kept him alert, every nerve attuned to the slightest movement. The moment came suddenly, an electrifying jolt that surged through David's line, nearly pulling him overboard. His muscles tensed as he gripped the rod, the line singing with the power of whatever beast lurked below. The other crew members on the boat snapped to attention, their eyes widening as they recognized the telltale signs of a monumental struggle. David had hooked a marlin, and not just any marlin. It was a giant, a creature of mythic proportions that fought with the ferocity of a wild storm. The marlin erupted from the depths, its sleek, muscular body gleaming in the sunlight. It thrashed and twisted, a living bolt of lightning against the deep blue backdrop of the sea. David's heart pounded as he battled the fish, every ounce of his strength and experience brought to bear in the contest. The marlin's movements were unpredictable, and its power was undeniable. It dove and leaped, dragging the boat in a wild, erratic dance across the waves. The fight stretched into an exhausting marathon. Hours blurred into a haze of adrenaline and concentration. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the water. Sweat poured down David's face, his muscles screaming with the effort of holding the marlin. The crew worked feverishly around him, adjusting lines and preparing when the fish would tire. As the marlin's movements began to slow, its leaps becoming less frequent, a sense of impending triumph filled the boat. The crew readied the gaffs and ropes, poised to bring the giant fish on board. But victory seemed within reach, so the marlin made one final desperate bid for freedom. It turned sharply and charged the boat, its sharp bill gleaming menacingly. The impact was sudden and violent. The marlin's bill pierced the hull with a sound like thunder, with water rushing in through the gaping wound. Chaos erupted on the boat as the crew scrambled to assess the damage. David's grip on the rod wavered, the sudden shift throwing him off balance. Pain shot through his side as he was thrown against the railing, a jagged cut opening in his arm. The crew worked with frantic determination to patch the hole, their movements a blur of coordinated effort. Despite his injury, David refused to relinquish his hold on the rod. He knew that losing the marlin now would mean defeat and possibly losing the boat. The marlin thrashed in the water, sensing the weakening resistance. The boat's pumps roared to life, struggling to keep up with the water inflow. The crew worked feverishly, their hands slick with seawater and sweat. David's vision blurred because of the pain in his arm, but he remained focused. Summoning every last reserve of strength, he pulled the massive fish closer to the boat. Finally, with a Herculean effort, the crew managed to secure the marlin. They hauled it aboard, its colossal body flopping onto the deck with a final exhausted shudder. The boat listed slightly. The added weight of the marlin and the still flooding water threatened its stability. The crew quickly secured the catch and continued trying to keep the boat afloat. David slumped against the railing, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The marlin lay at his feet, a testament to the battle that had just been waged. He looked at his injured arm, the cut not deep but bleeding freely. The pain was manageable, a small price to pay for their victory. The crew's cheers filled the air, a triumphant chorus that mingled with the cries of seabirds and the sound of the waves. The boat limped back towards the shore, its hull temporarily patched and its pumps working overtime. The journey was tense, with every creak of the ship and splash of water a reminder of how close they had come to disaster. But as the shoreline grew nearer, the tension began to ebb, replaced by a profound sense of accomplishment. As the boat docked, the other competitors gathered, their eyes widening at the sight of the massive marlin. David and his crew were hailed as heroes, their tale of struggle and triumph spreading quickly through the tournament grounds. The marlin was weighed and measured, and its size confirmed it as one of the largest ever caught in the competition. David's arm was bandaged, the injury not severe but a stark reminder of the battle they had fought. He stood with his crew, looking at the sea that had tested them so fiercely. The tournament was about the fish they caught, the trials they endured, the strength they discovered within themselves, and the unbreakable bond between man and nature. The sun had just descended, casting a golden glow across the expansive Pacific Ocean. Harry Shelby, a seasoned recreational diver, was preparing for another dive off the coast of California. The allure of the kelp forests, teeming with vibrant marine life, was irresistible. Harry, with years of experience under his belt, was drawn to their beauty and the promise of discovery. The boat rocked gently as Harry finished checking his gear. The engine's hum faded into the background as he focused on the task. The air was filled with the salty tang of the ocean, mingling with the scent of neoprene and the faint whiff of gasoline from the boat's engine. With a final nod to his dive buddy Jake, Harry slipped into the cool embrace of the Pacific. The clear water and visibility are excellent, and it is the perfect day for a dive. He descended slowly, equalizing the pressure in his ears as he went, the world above gradually fading away. As he descended, Harry marveled at the sight around him. Schools of fish darted in and out of the kelp, their silvery scales catching the light. Brightly colored nudibranchs clung to the kelp stalks, their intricate patterns a testament to nature's artistry. The kelp forest was alive with movement and color, starkly contrasting with the often monochromatic landscape above. Harry navigated through the kelp, his movements fluid and practiced. He was in his element, each breath from his regulator a reminder of the delicate balance between man and nature. His eyes scanned the forest floor, searching for any sign of the hidden treasures that often lay in wait. During one such search, he felt a sudden firm grip around his ankle. Instinctively, Harry looked down, his heart skipping a beat. Wrapped around his leg was a tentacle, thick and muscular, its suckers adhering to his wetsuit. A giant Pacific octopus, its body partially hidden among the kelp, had trapped him. The creature's intelligent and wary eyes locked onto his, and in that moment, Harry understood its intention. The octopus felt threatened, and it was trying to pull him deeper into the forest, away from the surface, away from safety. Panic surged through Harry, but years of training took over. He reached for his dive knife strapped to his thigh and began to look at the tentacle carefully. The octopus tightened its grip. The pain radiated up his leg, but Harry persisted. He had to free himself before the creature could drag him further down. The struggle was intense. The octopus, sensing resistance, wrapped another tentacle around Harry's other leg, pulling with surprising strength. Harry's mind raced, each second feeling like an eternity. He slashed at the tentacles, trying to avoid harming the creature more than necessary while fighting for his survival. Harry's air supply was a constant reminder of the ticking clock. He checked his gauge, still enough air, but the margin for error was narrowing. He kicked hard, trying to free himself, but the octopus's grip was relentless. The creature's beak came into view, a reminder of the potential danger. Harry had to stay calm and think clearly. With determination, Harry reached for his emergency signaling device, a small, high-pitched whistle to alert his dive buddy. He activated it, the sound piercing through the water. Jake, who had been exploring a nearby section of the kelp forest, heard the signal and immediately turned in Harry's direction. Meanwhile, Harry continued his efforts to free himself. The octopus was firm, but Harry's resolve was more robust. He used his fins to push against the kelp stalks, creating leverage, and with a final desperate slash of his knife, he managed to sever one of the tentacles. The octopus recoiled, momentarily loosening its grip. Harry took advantage of the moment, kicking free and swimming upward with all his strength. Jake arrived just in time, grabbing Harry's arm and helping him ascend. The octopus, sensing danger, retreated into the shadows of the kelp, its tentacles trailing behind. Harry and Jake continued their ascent, the surface tantalizingly close. Harry's leg throbbed where the octopus had gripped him, but the injury was not severe. It was a reminder of how quickly things could turn in the underwater world. Breaking the surface, Harry gasped for air, and the open sky was a welcome sight. They signaled to the boat, which quickly made its way toward them. The crew helped them aboard, and Harry collapsed onto the deck, his heart still racing. He removed his mask, taking in deep breaths of the sea air. As he lay there, the events replayed in his mind. The beauty of the kelp forest, the sudden attack, and the desperate struggle were a stark reminder of the ocean's unpredictability. Harry knew he had been lucky. The octopus, while formidable, was not intent on killing him. It was merely defending itself. It was a powerful lesson in respect for the creatures that called the ocean home. The boat ride back to shore was a time for reflection. Harry's leg was bandaged. The injury was minor but a testament to the encounter.